conversation about the audit process, we need to come to agreement on some terminology, because I'm very familiar with several audit standards. One's called the Yellow Book, which is the GAO's Generally Accepted Government Auditing Standards. Right? I know that one probably better than I should. Very nerdy about that one. The AICPA, Statements on Auditing Standards, which are harder to be nerdy about, but I sure do try. And the Institute of Internal Auditors standards, which are called the International Professional Practices Framework. And each of those entities uses slightly different terminology when it comes to talking about the phases of an audit. In your materials, I actually have included an excerpt from the Yellow Book. So once we talk through these phases of the audit, I'm going to take us back into the Yellow Book and show you that the Yellow Book addresses everything that we have here on these sheets of paper. What are these sheets of paper you see me shuffling? These are the steps of the audit process. But I've scrambled them up. I think I'm up to 14 steps right now. I struggle with getting too granular and staying too generic, so I've gone a little bit more granular as of late with the steps. So what your task is, and I'm going to divide you guys up into groups because we only have a limited amount of wall space to do this kind of work. I'm going to give you these steps. I'm going to ask you to put them in sequence and then hang them on the wall. I'm going to give you some tape too. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about the way I see it going. We'll kind of reconcile the way you see it and the way I see it. And then we'll begin our process of attacking each step. So that's where we're going. Okay, so obviously the first thing that happens to you is you get that vague audit assignment. Oh yeah, I heard someone saying the budget is first. So let's talk about that. Some things are what I would call floaters, which means they could show up. You could successfully argue with me that they go other places, right? Budget is one of those. Yes, usually you get the vague audit assignment and the budget together, but there's a natural place at the end of planning where it's time to renegotiate that budget. So I'm going to put it later. I guess technically it shows up two places. Another one that's a floater, a bit of a floater, is criteria. What defines an audit is the evaluation of a subject matter against a criteria. And you're having to pull criteria out all through the engagement. But I want it early. I want it as early as possible, and I'll show you and I'll explain why in just a little bit. Another one that's a floater is findings. Now, not everybody calls them findings, and we might have to reconcile.